Okay, hello and welcome back to the LRTV vlog. So let's play a little game, bit of fun. What I have is 4 differentials on the bench here from left to right, 1, 2, 3 and 4. See if you can tell me which vehicles they come out of. Just have a wild guess if you want to. Put the answers in the comments below before the video finishes. Right, so you have a clear view of these differentials. They are all Land Rover differentials and they're all the same length, just about, the casings. They do have different input flanges, 3 bolt fixing and 2 4-bolt fixings, and we also have a 4-bolt fixing here with a castellated nut. Okay, so some of you will probably know that it might be an older diff. You can see by the condition of them, they're not in a brilliant condition. However, you can see them clearly here. Okay, so the caps on the other end, the bearing caps or the bearing retainer caps, we're looking at number 1 first of all, which is HRC 2669. Part number clear. The next one along is HRC 2669, and then the next one along is HRC 2669. Okay, except for the end one here, which has a different arrangement. Okay, and yeah, does this give you any hints at all of what it might be? As you can see, the diff in the diff carrier, it's also different. Right, so moving along from 4 to 3, a diff carrier on this one. Okay, you have your planetary gears in there. Moving along again, okay, you'll see that the other 3 are, well, they're near enough as damn it the same. So these do come from different vehicles. Put a comment below in the underneath this video on YouTube, and later on the video you'll find out where they come from. So anyway, this axle, which I was cleaning up, I couldn't get the wire brush in here, so I've resorted to using some heat, and there is a fair amount of heat coming out of this Rothenberger's heat gun. You can see where the flakes of paint have been heated up, and they seem to come off quite readily. What I've been using is a cupped wire brush for cleaning the rust off, and it is effective, but it's very boring work. And also have cleaned this diff as well, as far as I could get first of all with the cupped brush, and you can see where it's missed, which I can't get into, and I'll use the wire brush on the drill here, which will get in a bit better. However, with this axle, yeah, that took quite a bit of cleaning and I still can't get in there. We're going to have to resort to something else to get the last bit of rust out. And I'm also going to change a few brackets on it, but we'll talk about that later. I did use the wire brush, however, to clean, I will try and speed up the process. So what I'm doing here is heating up and then just running the wire brush through there to try and shift some of the paint quicker. And this is what happened to the rotary wire brush on the drill. It just heated up and decided to wrap the steel around itself, so it became ineffective. Not a good move on my part. Axle casing at the back there, for an example of 1 hour's work, that was cleaning the heaviest amount of rust off the tube and then corollasing it. But the bottom one here needs to be steam cleaned, so I'll take that to work, get all the dirt off it and then rust bust it afterwards. As for the diff casing here, I cleaned that as much as I could and then corollased it. That should keep the rust at bay now. The main thing is now what I've got to do is remove this boss. You can use a puller. First thing to do obviously is to clean out the M8 thread here, and I've got to admit that I couldn't do this with the puller. I tried and tried, even heated it up and it wouldn't come off. Basically it directly draws out of the flange, however I couldn't get this off with this puller, so I'll have to try again later. It's not been a good week for me actually. However, I've ordered a flange kit, so once I've removed the boss out of the flange, I can go ahead and swap it over, so we end up having a hard prop shaft and a UJ rather than a donut, and we all know what donuts are like. Right, so maintenance on a grinder, and these grinders have been working really hard recently, so I usually clean them off with blowing air out, getting the rust and the dust and the grit out of them. It just helps them run a bit better. Now in an angle grinder, and you can see there I've taken the shield off and I've removed 4 set screws. These ones happen to be Allen keys, but sometimes they're slot headed or whatever. Basically there's a gear in here, okay, and this gear is greased. You can see the grease in there. Now there's no point in chucking more grease in, there's plenty of there, but what I do is every now and then just slip a bit of grease on the gears. If it makes it last longer, it makes it last longer. Okay, I'll just show you on this Bosch model, there's the peg that you push to lock in, so you can undo the disc, change it. It's there, and it slots in one of those 3 slots. Okay, no big deal. Most grinders are like this. You can take the head off and you have gears there. Same thing again on this Einhalt one. There's 4 smaller screws, and I'm surprised the Bosch was actually better built than this Einhalt one. And there you go. There's a gear, exactly the same sort of thing. The locking device for holding the spindle can be different from model to model. Usually what I do is check to make sure there's no play in there, there's no bad damage, which generally there isn't. This one's been thrashed and it's worked quite well. The lubricant in here, I've no idea what it is. I'm not sure whether it's an EP grease. However, there's plenty enough just to grease it up and set it going again, because it's not even dirty. So you can see basically where the gear was for the motor. Now the other thing with this Einhalt one, this was a shorting out, and I thought it was the bushes. So what I've gone ahead and done is order some bushes. It cost me about £5 for a pair, so that's £2.50 each. I'll just pop this old one out. They're quite easy to change on some of them. You can see this one's just about had it. On other models you can't see the brushes, they'll actually be in the grinder body, and you have to remove the body to get at the brushes. So this one is a quick job. Just take the old one out, click the new one in, and there you go, and then put the cover plate back on. That's no biggie there. That takes about 3 minutes to do this in total. And okay, well you'll see this. I have a tendency to use slotted with crosshead screws. Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll use the proper screw driver at this time. So this is the condition of the brushes, and one is worn worse than the other. And yeah, well, the arcing that was in this, I was quite surprised how ferocious it was. So what I'll go ahead and do is plug it in, and then I'll demonstrate what happened next with this angle grinder. And yeah, no, it's not working, surprisingly. It did earlier, and the plugs are connected. However, I had the compressor plugged in and not the extension lead, so I'll just swap this over, and then what you'll see is unhappy happening. You can see that it's arcing out again, and I think this angle grinder is US. Even though it is moving, it's sparking out inside, and I haven't got a clue what is wrong with this. I'm not going to strip it down any further. It's not worth my time to do it. You see that flashing there? Perhaps it will settle down in time. However, I doubt it, and I think this is more of a hazard, so this is going to get scrapped. I forget about the £5 I just spent on it. Right, so old angle grinders, you get the spindle locks and the keys, and of course the other angle grinders I always keep clean and safe when I finish with them. These damn things here, there's quite a lot of wire left on these, and I was quite surprised how quickly they do wear out. You can see the difference there, and that makes a difference between reaching places on say an axle and not reaching places. And I've gone through 2 of these this week cleaning other components. These are about £8.50 from local suppliers. The cut brush isn't as good as the knotted disc. So collection of taps, drills, taps and dies. Basically I buy them separately and use what I need to instead of buying a whole set. For instance, this is M12 by 1.25. It's good quality and it'll last the time. It's just what I need for certain jobs, and it's bought for such. Big drills, this one is a 16mm, I think this one is. This one's bought for a special job that stays in, doesn't get lent out. These things, obviously you get to a certain size, you can fit them in a chuck. And here's my left-handed set that Neil Lenzer sent me. Thank you, Neil, for these. They're really handy for taking certain bolts out. Yeah, basically I keep big drills and I only buy the ones I need, and these, they're used on a pillar drill rather than a small truck drill like this. However, when it comes to boring bigger holes in something like aluminium tank cutters, I don't know, some of you guys may have seen these, you may not have done. Basically you have an R-bore and you have a bit here which is interchangeable, and the tank cutters, they're interchangeable as well, and this is where you can fit into a drill and then cut larger holes. Obviously there is a limit to how thick the metal you can cut with is. However, this is handy for cutting plastics, aluminium and thin sheet steel, for instance. And of course you need your CT90 to work with it. I have just bought myself another one, and this is for another specific job. I'm just showing you these out of interest. Some of you guys are probably interested. Screw there, you undo that, you can change the bit in it, and of course you can change the tank cutter itself. This is a new one for a job. I've got some repetitive work to do next week, so new one fitted with a new arbor, and that's already been paid for. Pretty handy because yeah, I mean, if you're cutting something like a gauge dial in something for your gauges, 52mm or whatever, this one happens to be 32mm, and this was bought for a job. This one is very long suffering as well, and you'll be surprised how long these tank cutters last for if you look after them. So that's my collection. You'll see them coming up later in the vlogs, and I'll just put that away for now, somewhere safe, and don't lend it out, of course. I'm really particular about my drill bits. These cost a lot of money, and when you do lend them out to people, they end up screwing them up. Especially like this has slipped in the chuck and made a mess of it, and they usually come back blunt as well. So yeah, that's personal stuff. Now the other thing with taps is when you buy taps, you buy 3 taps, which is first, second and third taps, and I'll show you, you can buy sets of them. These ones 16mm by 1.25 for a specific job I do on calipers. However, when you buy stuff like this and you're tapping holes out, for instance, you start with the first, go with the second, and then finish off with the third. Okay, this third one was just to clean out a bolt hole. These two are ready for work, and they are fairly expensive when you get to the larger sizes. However, they are worth their weight. Okay, so what we have here is a 2-pin diff. 1, 2 is considered, there's only one actual pin in there, but because it's pegged in 2 places, it's a 2-pin. It also has a roll pin in there. Okay, easy ID'd. This one is exactly the same. It's an open diff, 2-pin. Now as we go a bit further down here, where are we? I'll just pull this back a little bit. There's actually a circlip in there. These wear out actually, and they're a bit of a pain in the backside. The circlip breaks, the pin drops out, and all sorts. Okay, so this is the earlier model of diff, and then this one here is a 4-pin. There's actually 2 pins running through it, or cross shaft, like the transfer box. And depending on what is in here is depending where it came from. We don't know yet. I'll strip this later and find out. The older differentials had a lockover, as you can see here, whereas later ones would have a roll pin, and you can see in here. These obviously are to adjust up the bearings, okay, to set your mesh or your backlash between the pinion and the sun wheel or crown wheel. Okay, so I'll give you the heads up on these differentials. Number 1, rear axle of a Discovery 2. As you can see, here's where the donut would go. We have a thread chaser to clean out the thread, and then we're going to pull this off in a little while. This one is also off a Discovery 2. This one is the front axle, flanged, 4-point fixing. This one came off a Discovery 1 axle, and it has a steering guard. This will be the same as the Defender axles of their relevant age. And then this one here also come off a Discovery, but on the rear, not the front, the rear axle. This one, however, we're tracing it to either be a special vehicles build diff with a 4-point diff, or it's a military spec 4-point diff which was supplied on the rears of the 90s, or some of the 90 military vehicles. So there you have it. Actually, I meant to say pin, not point. Right, so here's the casing of the 4-point diff. It's rather rotten. It needs cleaning up. I've stripped it down and I'm about to knock out the bearing races with a specialist tool. As quick as that. You see that? Air hammer put in the right position, and that knocks the bearing races out really quickly. Just got to be careful not to damage anything else in there. Okay, so I'll knock this out. This one, a little bit harder to do, and there are some shims in here, so I was being careful not to damage or hit them at all. I just got them on the edge, so I've got my bearing races out. That case is alright, they were nice and tight in there. I'll go ahead and clean this one now. You've done your wheel bearings before, you'll know how to take races out. There are slots in there that you can get a tool into to get hold of the back of the race and knock them out. However, with these, you got shims in. They don't want to be damaged or hit at all with any type of aggressive tool. So anyway, I've got the bearing number out on this, and this is pretty handy. I've got all the races and I've got all the bearings. They are worn, and I'll have to replace these now that I've stripped it. Well, you'll get a little surprise later, and I'll show you. But first I'll show you the condition of the casing, which isn't in good condition at all. It's only surfaced crap, and that'll come off. And after using a wire brush, this is the result. As you can see, it's fairly clean, but again, down in the little recesses, I can't really get at to get the rust out. So, anyway, look, there you go. Land Rover 90, a special differential. Going to take this to work, put it in the grease tank, clean it up, and then we'll get it painted. Okay, so yeah, job done with the cut wire brush, and then this piece on drill. Okay, so that's the best I could get it, which is not too bad to what it was actually. So the bearing, you have a LM number. These are Timken bearings made in the USA. They're also bearings made in the UK, as stamped on here. But the thing is, I don't need to go onto the internet to buy these bearings. I've got the numbers, and I can go to a local bearing and seal supplier and access these or acquire them. The bearings are not in brilliant condition. This diff has been, it's quite old and it has been used. And you can see, you probably can't see the wear on these, but that's the end of their life. I'll change them and we'll be happy. So there you go, you can see that Timken. Find of the week has got to be these metallic markers, which you can write on anything with. They're domestic things. This is a paint marker, and I love paint markers because I can scrawl over them. But these are very fine writers, so you can see here what sort of I can get out of it. So that's pretty good. For £1.49 compared to £5 for this paint marker, which does actually work eventually. It hasn't been used for a little while, so it's starting to get a bit sticky on the ball, but yeah, this is for marking stuff up, and the paint will last for a while. Basically, this is for part marking. Yeah, so there you go. So the other day I was browsing the internet, and I was actually looking for specific information on the differentials, and I come across Mega Squirt UK, which seems to show a lot of information about Land Rover diffs, which I'll leave a link below. You can see what sort of stuff, if you're interested of course, on what they have to say about differentials and the such like. However, I did find a video which is really interesting, which showed the 4-pin differentials, and there are a few differentials that have got 4-pin. The P38 is one. The D2 doesn't have a 4-pin diff. However, this video shows the condition they can be in if, for instance, they come from special vehicles which didn't have shims fitted in them. And you can see the casing here is badly worn, which means this casing's fucked. It can't be used. So what I was concerned about was whether I had a decent diff or not. So in here, and this is the first time I've opened it. Hang on a minute. Yeah, just wait a second. I'll just undo these bolts, and then I'll show you. This is because this is quite a surprise here. There, you have your planetary gears in the middle, and the casing is not damaged. And there should be, if it's a military one, according to their video, it should have a shim in it, which it has got. Okay, and it's shimmed on the smaller gears as well. Okay. And I'll just bring it up and show you not only the fact that it's got shims in here, but it's also got a forged cross piece. Now, if you remember when we did the LT 230, it has a similar sort of thing as what Ashcroft's provided. Okay, now this is an extra strong diff. So have a look at the casing below. Okay, it's got a shim in there. All right, so this apparently protects it from wear. And down at the bottom here, you can see that is in very good condition. So what we have is a very strong diff that is serviceable, and I'm actually very happy about this, because this is a very expensive unit when it's new, or the parts are anyway. You see that shim moving about there? That's actually protected the casing. So this is a military fitting on a 90, and it's one step down from a Salisbury axle. The Salisbury axle has the same sort of differential in it, and this is a very strong unit. So I'll leave a link as well for the video if you want to watch it from Mega Squirt, who explains exactly about 4-pin diffs and the difference, and what you can do, for instance, if you want to machine a P38 one to fit into a normal casing. So we'll go ahead and recondition this at some point. Please don't wait for a video or strip yours thinking you're going to get a tutorial yet. I don't have the money, so I'm going to have to wait, price things up first, and then get back to you. So the workshop I've had to clean up. It was an utter state. Swept the floor, scrubbed it a bit, and it's still a little bit dirty. Got some bits and pieces to do next video. Okay. Here's my transport to get stuff into the garage. It's packed out with axle stuff. I'll be moving stuff back in the garage, and my boy is collecting, for some reason, a shopping trolley for an engineering project, which he also dragged out of a ditch. So, till the next video, we'll see you later.